thanks to everyone here today. We have some of our friends and family here today, and we thank the companies that are here that work with USTAR's SBIR-STTR Assistance Center. How many of you are confused? It is an amazing program. There are a couple things that haven't been mentioned, I don't think fully, and I want to make sure that you understand these things as we go a little bit farther along. SBIRs, STTRs are one of the best sources of funding because they take a non-equity position in your company. And I don't think that we have mentioned that enough. None of this comes, this is what my colleague Ed Kimball likes to call, and I do not, but I will say it's free money. One of the best uses of your taxpayer dollar. This is mandated by Congress. That's what Danuta's talking about. It is an act of Congress that is continuing resolution, remembering that our federal government is also in continuing resolution at all. But we are in continuing resolution. But it's funded by Congress. One of the folks that started this program was Wayne Brown of the Wayne Brown Institute, if you're familiar with that locally. Mr. Brown was killed, unfortunately, in an airplane accident years ago, but the institution carries his legacy. And Mr. Brown was one of the people who went onto the Hill 30-some years ago to start the program to say that small businesses need help with research and development. We have to help the next Thomas Edison, and we don't know who he or she is. And we don't know what the next light bulb is. Some of those light bulbs are in this room today. There are several companies that we're familiar with who are absolutely inventing the cutting edge technology. And it's a thrill to be part of it. It's a thrill to have those in Utah. That said, what Charlie said is true. We will have people come into our office and say, nobody else is doing this. And we'll say, nothing, because we cannot. We have absolute discretion. But we're working with other people who are doing what you're doing, and we can't tell you. So it isn't enough to Google and find out who's doing, because whatever's being done today is being done somehow. And that is your competition, even if nobody's doing it the way that you're doing it. So SBIRs and STTRs, absolutely correct, as Danuta said. National Science Foundation prides itself on blood on the floor. They want that bleeding edge. The Department of Defense, who is the biggest player, half of the money comes from the Department of Defense for this program, wants very, very specific red widgets that will go into the Sahara Desert to set up our tents, and they need to become neon, so that when we take out our tents in the middle of the night, we do not need to have anything but incandescent lights on our helmets, so we can pull out those the red widgets and get our tents up and get everything going. And you can see exactly what the DoD is after. You can see what NASA is looking for. NASA is one of the funnest solicitations. I almost could tell you it was bedtime reading, but it gives you great hope. NASA is going to Saturn. NASA is going to do great things in the next 20 years. They need a lot of help to do it. So it's a fun solicitation to read. And what you heard today is true. You need to look at all the solicitations regardless of where you are. And we're going to tell you how we can help with that. Let me introduce you first of all to USTAR and to the SBIR Center. As you heard, Mr. Brown was one of the founders of this program. And I think largely because of that, because he was a big promoter, in the early days, we ranked 3rd to 5th in winning. And I really believe that's just because he's walking around saying, hey, there's free money. We fell off of that starting in 1993, just as an example, until 2008, a 15-year period. We had $200 million in SBIRs. Massachusetts had $150 million in 1 year alone. We have built a building at Utah State University, state-of-the-art, phenomenal. And we bring in what we call USTAR professors. We've recruited them from other areas, and they come here. We are finishing the building at the University of Utah. It will be open in April. If you used to golf up there, sorry, we have the space. In doing that, Dinesh Patel, if you're familiar with Dr. Patel, certainly one of the leaders of our technology groups here in the state, he particularly said, let's pay attention to SBIRs. Let's help our research and development. Do you know Dr. Patel, anybody? Very soft-spoken, lovely man. Favorite thing about Dinesh, our governing authority meetings, just an aside, governing authority meetings are once a month. Anybody's invited because we're funded by the legislature. And I think they're now 5 to 6:30. At 6:30, Dr. Patel says, may I have a motion? And one of the esteemed members of our board says, motion to adjourn. And he says, good. And no business is done after that. You got to get everything in. Meeting ends at 6:30, and I like it. But Dr. Patel said, let's pay attention to SBIRs, and everyone agreed. So some of the funding has come into our arena, and we opened up in June 2008. As Danuta has told us, just as we're going into lots of continuing resolutions about the SBIR funding. Since then, however, we have over $3 million in grants, and we have a 30% win rate for those people that we work with and offer our assistance to. So we're pretty proud of that. What we do is we offer consultations with your companies to see what it is that you might need, how your commercialization plan is, certainly what your technology is. All of that is done, as we say, in the cone of silence, but we offer you our confidentiality agreement under the state. Perhaps the service that we're known for the best is a solicitation search. Once we meet with you and we determine that you're SBIR able or very close to, and certainly if you're not, you can do this as well, just so you understand where you are in the process. We will offer an opportunity for you to provide us with keywords. We have an understanding of what your technology is, and then we do a search every time a solicitation comes out. Bouncing those keywords, and I'm going to show you, you can do this your very own little self, but bouncing those keywords against the solicitation. Now, the solicitations come out all through the year, from January 3rd through 8th for Health and Human Services, which comes out once a year with 3 deadlines, certainly throughout the rest of the year. Department of Defense comes out 3 times a year with additionals for their STTRs. SBIRs are 3 times a year, and STTRs come out several times a year. So we'll bounce those out. Then we send out, within a week of that arriving, we send you out an email that says, we found a match, hurry, hurry. We don't have a match, but here's a solicitation, please look at it. Or here's a topic of interest. So we understand that you're the red widget guy, and we understand what you can do with your coatings. And here's something that's another coating that perhaps you want to get into, or perhaps it's another widget, depending on what's going on. This will be of interest to you. What you have to do then is to be prepared, if it's a match or a topic of interest, to make sure it matches your business plan and make sure that you're ready to submit, because it's very intense and very intensive. How many here have submitted SBIRs? Very intense. Lots of time and lots of detail. And it's those details, as you heard from Charles and you'll hear from me, it's the details that will take you down. So we're here to make sure. So we go through the search. If there is a match, we're happy. If there isn't a match, we keep looking, of course. And then we're here to provide you with guidance, evaluation, editing, and submission. One of the things that we offer is called a phase 0, and that is, and it's a bit of a change for those of you who've been around for a while, but we think it's going to work. But we have grant professionals who have been on both sides of the table, and these grant professionals will read your SBIR phase 1 when you're into a solid version, and we feel that there's a good match, and you feel that there's a good match. So they're going to read it for you. We do charge some for that, not too much money for that. We also, of course, will participate in that. But you'll have a grant professional who's sat on both sides of the table who's going to read that solicitation for you. We pay them significantly more than you pay us. And it's a review before a review. So former science advisors, people who have been with the Ceramatech team, folks who have worked, again, on both sides of the SBIR, both as topic managers sometimes and reviewers, as well as submitters. So we've got a good group of folks, and we try to match you up with their expertise as well. So they'll turn that around within a week. We'll get it back to you, and you can take that from them. We do that in this office as well. We have folks that will email us at any time. We're working with them, make sure that your team's up, that your program, that your submissions are working, that sort of thing. And then there's this. This is evil. There is just no other way around it. It's less evil in Fastlane. It is less evil in DoD SBIR. And the DoD, just so we all recognize, calls them SBIRs. So if you're talking to the Department of Defense and you're calling the program manager, it's kind of nice to talk the talk, and the talk is SBIR. So when we walk into the Department of Defense, we talk SBIRs, and then they know what we're talking about. But this is a very long, it is a long process. He was correct. It takes quite a bit of time to get on there, and we're going to touch base on that just a little bit. So we work with any Utah technology. The search fee is $75 annually, but we help anybody, and once we know your technology, let me just say that we're not going to let anybody lose an opportunity to win an SBIR. But it is, if you feel that you have somebody on your staff or there is someone who can pay attention, we'll show you where that information is. The real deal is, if once you're committed to SBIRs, you want to know every time that's listed, and you hate to miss one, so we want to do that for you. Here's some pre-work that you need to do. Business licenses are required everywhere. For us, they need to be a Utah business license in order to work with us. That's that. We urge you strongly to have your IP protection and patents in place, at least in good form. You've at least visited with some lawyers. You want to make sure that you've got that where it needs to be. One of the things about the SBIR-STTR program is they hold everything in confidence as well. If this was a reviewing room, the room is locked when they're reviewing. When they're not here, they are either gathered and watched by someone. Someone sits in the room so that nobody else will walk in. They're not allowed to discuss outside the room. All these kinds of things are in place. A lot is done electronically these days, and of course they have the proper encryption, those kinds of things. Your business plan needs to be strong. It needs to be written down. We'd like to take a look at it. We are not business people. We don't analyze your business plan. The small business development centers are a good place for that, and they're located throughout the state, and we're happy to help you with that. You may also want to call on folks in the area. It's call on AJ. And you'd be happy to review a business plan. Yep. But you'd be surprised. And wouldn't you help anybody who called you? Of course. So to have somebody look at your business plan, it is not a bad idea to ask the TCO what offers they can help you with. Particularly, obviously, if you're university connected, you should be doing that. They have a lot of good opportunities. But look for folks who have been successful in that business and have them evaluate your business plan. Your commercialization path and your partners are going to be critical. And let me tell you that SBIR mills is what we're trying to avoid now. And that was happening in the early days, where our scientists, you were absolutely correct when you made the comment about scientists, they love to make it work. Once it works, yay. And it didn't get brought into the public. The advantage wasn't oftentimes brought off the shelf. So the SBIR-STTR program said you have to bring it into the public. Now, everything isn't going to work all the time. But after 15 SBIRs, which let's all get, if you haven't commercialized something, you will get no more SBIRs from anyone. That's that. But you will. You will. After 15 SBIRs, something will be commercialized. Everything will happen. A strong build, and a strong team rather, and that includes a strong business person. With the commercialization, the other thing that they're looking for is that you have somebody on your team that understands the market, that knows where to take it, and that can do it. Tried and failed is okay. Tried and succeeded is great, but there are very few entrepreneurs who haven't done both. And we want to talk about your failures, what you learn in your bio. We want to talk about what you've done correctly. But they want to see that there's somebody there who can guide the business. Sometimes that business person needs to be the PI because your PI is a university professor who isn't going to go on sabbatical. That's tricky. But that's the person. They have to have skin in the game. They've got to be part of your team. They've got to be working on what you're doing. And I'm going to just take a brief shout out here. For Bryce Hansen is here learning. And Bryce is somebody who runs a company that does the accounting and has apparently some sort of happy sound when I say his name. But Bryce runs a company called Venn Insight, and he does accounting work with a special emphasis on SBIRs, STTRs, and grants. So Bryce we collaborate a lot with Bryce, and we've sent quite a few companies to him, all with great happiness. Registering with grant.gov can take 3 weeks. We submitted grants within our organization, within the SBA. We registered. It took us 2.5 weeks. Do not pay to get this done. When you put in DUNS, if you put in CCR, you will get some websites that say, for just $300, I'll do this for you. Please do not pay. But through grants.gov, on the right-hand side, or left-hand, see this right? The left-hand side, get registered, walks you right through it. It has a fantastic slides. Just do it. he's absolutely right. If you're doing this in the middle of an SBIR, something's going to give, and it's probably going to be the SBIR. So we want to get your DUNS number. It just takes a day or two. And the CCR registration is your central contract registration. Anybody working with PTAC, or does anybody bid on government contracts currently? This is that gateway. If you're actually producing something, central contract registry is where you want to go to say, oh, you know, you need that widget. I make widgets. This is where it is. So you're registering for several other things. This requires a banking account. Do not use your personal checking account, please. Please set up an account for yourselves. And the government's going to like this. They don't like you to mix those dollars. So be sure you keep your name, your company, and your personal separate. And we always give the hint that passwords can be the same. It's best if they're company-oriented. You want to, again, keep this away from the work that you do on your computer, those sorts of things. And then register with the agencies that you might have the highest interest in. National Science Foundation, DOD, they have separate registrations. Very simple, don't take a lot of time, but get the big boys done, and then we'll help you. And certainly, if you have any questions, let us know. They have excellent help desks as well. How to be successful. I think you've heard a lot of this, so I'm just so pleased when we say things that are like, but Charles was up here saying it, so it's even better. As a team, you really need to commit yourself to SBIRs and STTRs, and you need to recognize that even with the best of everything, you, of course, will not win every SBIR. So, from the beginning, you're going to brainstorm for clarification. What is your innovation? Just hone it in, narrow it down, because you're going to have to send to these program managers, I hope, a one-page. I hope that you can get it down to one page. It is just a little bit more than an elevator speech. They don't have time to read everything, and you want to catch them now. So how is it defined? You want to write a 1 to 2 page concept paper that can match solicitations, because you will have looked at the solicitations, so we're going to show you where they are. And then you're going to develop a generic proposal outline. Now, generic proposal outline at this juncture says this is a work plan. If we got $150,000, what would our tasks be? What would our milestones be, and who would be doing them? How much is that going to take? How many hours is that going to take? What's that going to take? Just the work plan. So you don't have to worry about your biosketches, your facilities, your development, all those kinds of things. You want to develop this quickly. Then conduct your research. We want to know where your your market is. We want to understand where you're going to come. We want to know how you're going to commercialize. If you're working with folks, you're going to need those letters when the solicitations come, but you're going to want to tee them up early. And then establish contact with the potential funding agency. It's absolutely essential. We call it walking through the front door, and we're going to talk about that. And a firm commitment to SBIR-STTR. I will tell you that if you're doing this on the side, oh, what the heck? It's a whole lot of work for what the heck. Your proposal, I believe, will reflect what the heck, and you will not win. But if you do win, you have to follow a lot of rules in the winning, so you've really got to be committed to that. On that end, I'll put in a plug for Thursday. We're bringing in national recognized expert Russ Farmer, who's going to talk to us about the accounting aspect of that. He's going to talk about the grants, the contracts, how different they are. It's one of the driest things you've ever seen, and he makes it exciting. But it's very relevant. So if you're in the space, it's a good place to go, and some of you, I know, have already registered, and we're pleased for that. Thank you. But walk through the front door, do exactly what he said, make that appointment, send that 1 to 2 page email. Hi, Charles, this is Mary. Here's my 2 pages. This is what we do, the little 1 paragraph. This is what we do. I am going to be in Washington, D.C. I'd like to know what you have to feel. All of that is critical, and I believe that without it today, because the competition is so tough, why? We're out of jobs. So we're saying, hey, I'm going to pursue that dream. And it could be a good thing. I'm pursuing my dream. This is what I'm doing. We've got a lot of folks that are walking in with that. So you can create your own SBIR. You can absolutely create your own SBIR. And I know what you're up against on. You're looking, and nobody knows the light bulb's out there. And you've got to tell them that the light bulb's out there. And it's tough. Because they do have a lot to do. When you go to DC, 15 minutes will be all you get. In New Orleans, in early November, I want to say that it's the first Sunday, I want to say the 5th through the 8th or something, is the National SBIR Conference. They will have program managers from every division there. You set up individual one-on-one meetings, and we will coach you through what to say. We will be there. We reflect our companies when we're there. But you sit down, and you've got 10 minutes, and it's golden. Here's what I do. What do you think? You know, but you've got to be honed in. We barely let them say hello. It's like, boom. He wasn't wrong about, we all like that, right? Reflect, you know. But they're not, they're ready for you. You know, they're like boom, 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 boom. And they get really irritated when people say, well, I'm thinking, no, zoom. And we'll help you get zoomed in so that 10 minutes, and you go from program manager to program manager, you schedule yourself with as many as you can. Of course, hitting the ones that should be your primary and then moving your way down. And as Charles said, creating your own SBIR does not mean you'll win. The competition is severe. And then you're going to match your innovations with the solicitations. Is everybody clear on solicitations and what they represent, how they get made? We have 2 folks up at Hill Air Force Base that give input. They walk around all day, they talk to the primes, they talk to the boys and girls that are working on the airplanes and whatever up there. They give input. They're allowed, I want to say 3 a year. So they submit 2 or 3 a year. They may submit 8, but they're only allowed to have 2 or 3, and I don't know how that'll work. But there are people, so at every Air Force facility, people are feeding up to the program managers. So these boys and girls are here at Hill. They reflect up to the Charles equivalent. He will siphon down to his committee, and they get looked at, and that's how the topics come up. They determine how essential all the topics are.
So what are the people called? What is their title?
They're called program managers too, because they can interface. They can switch places. They'll switch them around if they need to. If they have an expertise in one area, they'll flip them around. But there is a group that makes the decision as to what goes in the solicitation. The DoD solicitation will have anywhere from 300 to 400 topics each. They come out again 3 times a year, very specific, and they will have different emphasis. Sometimes the Air Force is the heavier player, sometimes the Navy, sometimes the Army. It depends on how it goes. So review the agency solicitations, match your concept paper, review and make sure to follow the agency guidelines, something we can help you with, and then you're starting a comprehensive outline at this point. Take that initial outline of your milestones and tasks. You have to come back against this particular topic because you have to address their needs, not just yours. And so you're going to add some meat to the bone. Zinn.com is run by Rick Schindel, and he is the SBIR-STTR guru. So first click will take you to SBIR, lots of fun things there. Once you're here, on the blue side, there's everything here, and just to slide down just for a second, here are all of the departments. You will click right into the SBIR information. So it's a very excellent site. He also provides information on upcoming dates, all those kinds of things. Any SBIR information is here. But as we look here, we can put in a topic for open and for closed solicitations. So we can search all, or we can search the DOE. Let's just search the DOE. And again, this is open. So I'm going to put in batteries. And what Mr. Schindel has done is he also rates. You see the four stars over the score. So I don't know how he particularly knows, but these are low cost, optimized redox flow battery, electrolytes, novel ionic conduct membranes. Yay. So I look at that. I read that carefully. Additionally, please read the entire solicitation. Do not just look at this and say, I'm good to go. You need to know exactly what he talked about. What's the Department of Energy about? You need to write your solicitation to the Department of Energy. You need to know a lot more. So we come down here, however, and what's here is this name. And that's what's golden. You want to find this name and communicate with this person. In addition, please read the references. Make sure that you understand what they're after. Make sure that you look at the whole process. If we are doing the other thing that we do for you is we'll take your keywords and we're going to go back. And there's two, just to show you, there's two groupings. One is 2006 through 2010, and then one's before. We generally stick to the closest one. And oops, this is everything, not just DOE, but putting in battery. These are closed solicitations. So I'm going to look at every one of those because I want that program manager's name. If this matches what I do, I want to communicate with that program manager. I want to know where that phase 1 went, who got funded, who's on phase 2. What can I get to go sole source? Because what happens with SBIRs, STTRs, if you're very fortunate, and it happens quite a bit with the DoD because they're looking for something specific, but they still need you to have your commercialization plan. They are looking for something out here, and you're going to be the one that provides it. And you don't need to go through the bid process because you're the one who's won it all the way through. So they need that widget that's going to shine in the sand, in the neon. That's what they need. And when you perfect that, you will get that award. One of the things that you want to ask about as you're going is, what do you see? How do you see this fading? Is this coming into another agreement? Is this part of a larger program? How does this work for your agency? And how can I fund? If you're working with NIH for any reason, where else can I go for money is a critical, critical question. Where else can I go? Who else can I talk to? NIH, just by the way, and I know we don't have too many folks here probably that play in the NIH space, but NIH is significantly higher in their dollars generally. They understand what it takes to get to FDA approval, and they're going to give you more money than $150,000, but you always get approval for that before you go along. So, any questions on Zinn before I?
So Zinn is a private agency?
It's a gentleman, does his own deal.
So
He just, goodness of his heart, goodness of his heart. Your timeline for SBIRs, there are only 2 things that are not so good with SBIRs, I think. There are no gotchas. However, not only do you have to work the specified amount of time during the grant, but you cannot work full-time elsewhere. And that's an interesting caveat for folks. So a lot of folks, it's okay, I can put in, and I will put in 60 hours a week, but I'm working full-time elsewhere, and that's not allowed, and they can check. So you can't, we see a lot of folks, and the reason for this is they don't want you to be uncommitted to this. They want this to be your business, they want this to be your job, this is what you're doing. So they don't want you working at USTAR in the morning and working at Cardon Inc. in the evening getting this SBIR together. This should be your sole work.
Can you apply for phase 2 without applying to phase 1?
No, you're invited to phase 2s. 2 or 3, 4 people will win phase 1s. They'll evaluate those, and they'll evaluate them on 2 things. Number 1, did you meet your milestones? Did you prove it feasible? And number 2, and perhaps more importantly, did you spend their money correctly? If you did not spend the money the way, and you will submit a very substantive budget. If you did not submit that, if you did not spend that correctly, you're not going to win or be asked to a phase 2 period.
But if you're already beyond the feasibility study phase?
You will prove feasibility against their requirements. Never cut yourself out because they have requirements. The Department of Energy is going to want some requirements. So you may need to take a step back in what you're doing, but you're going to prove feasibility against their requirements is how we say it. So sure, many companies are operating today, making money, selling, doing their thing. This has nothing to do with not proving feasibility. Of course you're successful, but your research and development should be continuing, and when you do that, it should match your business plan. We had a gentleman who, we can just say, produced widgets. The Department of the Navy needed his widgets. The Department of Navy needed them. He could do it. But they have to mine salt water, very cold temperatures, and salt air. And when he looked at that, he could have done that, but he determined that it would cost him an entire manufacturing line, and he determined not to submit. So it needs to match your business. He knew he could do it, but the cost would be astronomical. So he did not spin out another company. He did not do anything. He chose just to stick to the business plan because what it would take to make it salt water worthy is what we called it. It would be difficult. So let's look at our timeline quickly. There's a release of a phase 1. You want to have all your registrations done because you probably have about 6 weeks. Not all the solicitations. Again, you heard me talk about Health and Human Services drops in early January with 3 solicitation dates, April, August, and December. But when it does, you basically have 6 months. You're going to submit your phase 1 proposal. So it's all hands on deck. I can tell you you're into it for about 100 hours. If our office is helping you, we'll add an additional 40 to 60 to that. Your phase 1 effort will sit. The award will come hopefully 6 months later. And you're going to work for the 6 months doing your program, doing your reports, and you're going to be invited to phase 2. You're going to be finishing up your phase 1 reports just as you've got to submit a phase 2 submission, which is another solid 100 hours right towards the end, and they don't pay you to do your phase 2 submission. We have folks that always try to put in money to get that done. No. So you're submitting for phase 2, and now you're in the valley of death. Danuta mentioned phase 2B and phase 1B. Some of the agencies have helped us a lot to overcome that. So, but they've carved a little off phase 1 generally. So your phase 1 was 150, now it's 100, but if you win 2B, you'll get 50, you gotta have matching funds. Still better than floating out there. But you have 6 months, and then you're awarded phase 2. You've got 2 years of economy, and of course you're continuing to submit for more and more grants. But then they want to start seeing your commercialization. Just to touch base on this, again, particularly NIH, they know it takes a little bit more time than 2 years to bring a new medical device to market. And they'll know that with your products as well. But they need to see that progress. They need to see how you're moving. So that's something you can work for. 40% of phase 2 is commercialization. So you gotta be in the game. And you show the game in phase 1. Just, again, been touched on, but rejection prone, rejection must in the blue is over budget, page limit, or your format's incorrect. The admins that sit at the front of the stack, you can just sort of see them, and they look through everything, and they throw them in the round file because you are $151,000 because you're 6.5 pages because you didn't use the right font and you didn't put in the right font size. You're in the round file. You're done. That's that. The head of the NSF, the numbers on the DOE are very impressive. The NSF gets about 12,000. They rejected 10% on things like this. The head of NSF, SBIR program reviews each one of those, does not look at the program itself, but reviews each one of those to make sure those are correct. They all were. 1,200 of them were done. No commercialization plan, and you don't say the website. We're going to put this up on the web and everybody will come. No. A weak team. Your milestones are not well defined, and your PI credentials are weak. We do want to emphasize, as Danuta did, that PhDs and MDs are not required. They are required on the team if you're a medical device. You won't get far. National Science Foundation is going to need them at some point. DOE, not so much. Not DOD. They want somebody who knows what they're doing. For sure, you don't have to have that PhD or MD. It tends to play a little differently in Science Foundation. Budget within the guidelines, meet the page limits and the format. And one of the things that we provide you is that sample is a stamped sample across the top. We provide that to you for each solicitation as you're working on it. The last page has that information straight from the solicitation, which we beg you to read, but it has to be in there, and it also provides you the guidelines of what's required, and how many pages it has to be, what it needs to do, all those sorts of things. Your team of experts and a business person, your milestones are well defined, and your PI has expertise and is experienced. What to expect after the win? You're going to do reports, 2 to 7, it depends on the agency. Meet, you're on time, tell them about your milestones. And if you're having problems, that contract manager is going to be your friend. So make sure that they understand what's behind, what's above. If you need to move money around, you always want to get approval. Keep your federal dollars separate and spend it as you said you would or get permission to change. This is our contact information. Ed Kimball, we don't have Nicole's picture up, is my colleague downstairs, fending off DOE questions as today is a deadline, and anything that we can ask. One of the things that we would strongly echo is it is always worth submitting. It is always, if you have a good match, because those reviews are invaluable. And the only way to win is to buy a ticket.